Welcome to the Yalla Habibi
Habibi.
podcast.
Welcome.
We're very excited for this episode because we have a guest that is full of incredible stories that are going to amaze you on today's episode.
I'm really excited about this one. We've been really looking forward to having this guest on today.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And before we do bring him on, I want to give him a bit of intro. And wow, you're going to quickly understand that Wells is not just one thing or even one man. He's lived truly many lives. Wells is an accomplished Antarctic explorer who spent actually 3 seasons with the US Navy VXE-6 Squadron on the Antarctic Pararescue Team, providing the air wing for Operation Deep Freeze, the long-running US mission supporting international scientific research in Antarctica. His work meant grueling hours in the blistering cold, technical climbs around mountains, glaciers, and crevasses. And in 1977, he actually became only the 7th person to freefall skydive over the South Pole, which just blows my mind. He's also a graduate of the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York and a Broadway performer with film and TV credits, including The Lone Ranger, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, Gold, and Killer Woman. These are just a few notable mentions. Along the way, he's worked with the likes of Johnny Depp, Margot Robbie, Matthew McConaughey, again, as well as many, many more. And if that wasn't enough, we carry on. He's actually also co-authored A Line in the Sand, which we're going to be talking to him about today, based on his 1,100-mile trek from Jeddah to Damascus in 2006, retracting Lawrence of Arabia's route with his adventuring friend, Miles Spencer, which has already garnered over 600 5-star reviews on Amazon. It's an incredible read. And right now, he splits his time between open water swims, solo mountain scrambles, and long-distance rides on his motorbike. Expect survival stories, theatre tales, camel rides, and proper adventures. Welcome, Well.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you both, Scott, both of you. It's Shelby, right?
Yes, it's Shelby.
I'm sorry we met briefly, a while ago. And it's so nice to see you both. And thanks for having me on.
We love it. And what the wild thing is, when I read through your bio, I had to trim things out of that intro. There are things that I haven't actually introduced about you because you are just one of many tales. And I'm excited to learn about this. And before we do dive into the unique things about you, I want to first understand Wells as a human, because I think that's important to understand you as a man first. So I want to take a DeLorean back and I want to know where you grew up, but not just where you grew up, more specifically, what would you say in your childhood played a key role in making you the adventurer and adrenaline seeker you are today?
Well, I think that growing up, I'm still growing up, and I was a part of an Army family. My father was an officer in the Army in Korea, and he was a general's aide, and I have 5 other brothers and sisters, and we were born all over the map. I was born in Stuttgart, Germany, a brother born on my first birthday, older twins, a couple of years older, and then another set of twins after my brother was born, another couple of years. So there's 6 kids within 6 years of age. We moved around a lot, and probably the really pivotal moment in my life was when my father passed on. I was 11, older sister's 13, brother 10, and then 2, there were 8. And by that time, we were in Vermont. And it was a very foreign land to us. We'd come from South Carolina, which is the South, and I had a very deep accent. When they said, tell everybody your name, and I said, my name's Pat Jones. And people went, what? And I got outside the door of the schoolhouse, and it was almost like a one-room schoolhouse, but because this is a very rural area. And I found my nose in the dirt. I was shoved, and it was like, ooh, who are you? But that was 4th grade. But the influence in my life and that really brought things forward with the passing of my father. I was the oldest boy, and my mother would look at me, and, I was 11. Just before 12, and my father had passed on. She said, we need a door on the side of the barn. I think you can make it. And she's looking at me, and I'm going, yes, ma'am. We always said, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. And she turned around and picked up a coffee tin of bent nails. I didn't know they were bent, she said, but she's handed them. She said, now you take these nails and straighten them. And once you're through using them, we'll see about getting more. And so it was the first time I had to figure it out. And there were other moments with my mother. I did build the door, and I figured out how to bend the nails straight. And we did get more nails, and I did get help putting the door up. But at 15, still in Vermont, not real happy. I was very happy, actually. I'd just come back from an encampment for citizenship. And it opened my eyes to this whole world of people that were from Sweden, Israel, from Harlem, Spanish Harlem, Long Island, from just Germany, France, England, and we all spent a summer together. There were high school thought leaders, and the camp was called the International Camp for Citizenship. And so it was bringing all these cultures, and then going back to Vermont, 5 towns fed my school. My graduating class, well, I did graduate there, was 31. But at 15, I started school again. I said, Mom, I'm leaving. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I'm leaving. I can't deal with it here. I have friends now from the camp. And she said, where are you going to go? I said, well, Charles said I could live with him. You're going to go live in Harlem. And she said, no, if you can't deal with where you are and stop commenting, you have no business making a step forward. Do not run away from where you are. Open your eyes, Tad, and look. You've got 40 acres of land here. There's a river. There's a mountain. You got a canoe. Get out there. Get out there and look at the people around you. They're New Englanders. We're not New Englanders, but they're from New England. It's almost a different culture. See them for who they are. So that has stayed with me. That opened the door to adventure, and most things I did on my own. I explored on my own. In the wintertime in Vermont, I would go along the river, the cracked up ice. I would do anything. I would sing songs. I would run. I wasn't into sports because the guys were bullies in my mind, and I didn't like that. And I stood up for the guys that were getting whipped by the bullies. One individual that was really getting, brutalized by 3 guys. And I got smacked pretty hard doing that by the bullies, but it made a point. And so that was my intro into really looking beyond the horizon, but seeing where I was. And it's true. It was idyllic. It was idyllic. And I learned to ski. I learned the guy across the road, my sister fell in love with him. They ended up marrying. Now, there's only 4 houses in sight where we lived. We were on one side of the road. There was someone next to us kind of over there. And then across the street were the Millses and Jim. Jim was a big influence in my life. He became my brother-in-law. And because he was so strong and he knew how to do things. And I didn't have a dad, but I didn't look for a dad. I just saw that someone could do something I couldn't do, and so it was the adventure side of it. And so that's where it began in Vermont, young, and it kind of took off. And I really took advantage of it. I mean, I hauled that 17-foot-long canvas-covered wood-hulled canoe, old town canoe. It was red with an Iroquois Indian painted on the very front of it. And I would slide it through the field at any way I could to get it to the river, just to feel it, and jump from the rocks in the river, and with my brothers and sisters at times as well. So
I love that.
Adventure began soon.
Yeah, it seems so. And it seems your mother had a big influence, and then your brother had a big influence as well. And I think, mothers don't get enough praise. Mothers that are the backbone of every family, the driver, even when the father is still around, the mothers really are the driver. And that's amazing. I love it when someone brings out their mother in their story.
Well, she was phenomenal. I mean, she kept us together. We really scrambled. There was not a lot of money. It was like genteel poverty. We had beautiful things but there was very little money. I grew up hungry. I mean, I swear to you, I was slender and just hungry all the time. And I remember going to my grandmother's little cupboard and getting a couple little crackers. And I thought, I'm stealing, I can't do this. But I was so hungry. And then I realized work. So I started working, I mean, at 12, 13, and bringing in, money for me. I could buy clothes, like, a few things, but it was great. And my mother's influence, no question. I mean, imagine a mom saying, stop commenting. And I had to think about that. What does she mean? She's saying, just see the beauty. Don't run from it. And since then, as a person that studied Stoicism, the obstacle is the way. What stands in the way is the way. You've got to go through that. You've got to deal with that. And I have done that, and I've held that philosophy all through my life. And I've been asked to do things. You see my resume. I was asked to do things that I really didn't know how to do. I didn't have experience doing it, but people saw qualities in me, attributes that they trust in that I would be able to do it. And it was wonderful. I mean, that's been my life, adapting and learning capacity and not being afraid, trusting. If someone is saying, would you consider doing da 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 da? And it's like, yes. It's a tap on the shoulder, being asked to do something. Churchill had a quote. Winston Churchill, you know who I mean. And the quote, right? The quote is, there comes a time in everyone's life when they're proverbially tapped on the shoulder and asked to do something very special, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy it would be if that moment found that individual unfitted or unwilling to do what could have been their finest hour. And so that stayed with me. It was a sense of being prepared and being willing to see and not put it down. Take that pause. Again, Stoicism, this pause between stimulus and response. And hold your opinion careful. Don't knee-jerk react. So these are qualities that came from my mother. And after doing the service, she's the one that said, you should go into acting school. When I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was going to do this and that, and this is not ready. And she said, I think you should study theater and acting, because she was seeing it would give me an opportunity to play other people, to live other experiences. Anyway, I'll stop because you might have a question.
We think that mothers are angels that walk among us. That's wonderful to hear the significance of how your mother supported you. I think that's, not everybody has that. And the fact that you had someone cheering you on, pushing you to achieve your goals is wonderful. And I just want to dive into the Antarctic now, because that, for me, is one of the most mind-blowing things that you've done in your life. That it's a place in the world that very few people will ever dream of visiting. Strangely enough, Scott has 2 friends that have been, which I think is a huge rarity.
Yeah.
But what motivated you to go to the coldest place in the world?
Well, it had to do with getting out of high school, and it was decided, again, my mother's influence. She said, I've always seen you as a Navy man, not Army. See, my father was in the service, and her family and her brothers. And she said, would you consider, Vietnam had just ended. It was 1973, right after the New Year. And she said, you could get the GI Bill, you could go to college on that, and you could go back into the Navy, or be a part of the Navy and become an officer. And it's just something I think you would like. And I thought, okay, this is for me, this is a way to get out of Vermont and to get on the road to something that I literally just threw it to the wind. I was strong. I had a level of confidence. I mean, as a kid, you think sometimes you can do anything. I don't know if you have, but I felt that losing a father and adapting to that brought many, many lessons and a level of independent thinking, and being able to look at other men and deciding how I wanted to be. I mean, President Nixon was impeached, and the lies that were going on. And so I knew that I wanted to be a man of integrity, be honest. And I thought, going to the Navy, why not? Why not? And so by doing that, I went through school. And when it came time for my orders to where I would be sent, most people were sent to ships or to submarines or things like that. And it just happened. It was to me, the luck of the draw. Because when they were reading my orders, they were going, Jones, and they looked at it, and then he said, good God. And he looked at the other guy, and they both looked at it, and they both said at the same time, Cheech. I was going, teach? I don't know what's going on. Then they turned it upside down. They didn't tell me what it was. Picked up the other orders, went through the list. And the very last one, they said, okay, Jones, we don't know how you got this, but you're going to one of the most beautiful places in the world, Christchurch, New Zealand. But then you get to go to the coldest place in the world. And he said, we don't like that. Maybe you do. Maybe you're going to have to learn to like it because that's where you're going. And so he said, you'll be a part of a squadron that flies planes for the National Science Foundation. They've been doing it for a few years. And you're based out of Point Mugu, California. But the staging base for Antarctica is Christchurch, New Zealand. And you'll be flying to McMurdo Station, Antarctica. And the South Pole is a few hundred miles away. And everything that was said, I couldn't believe it. I didn't know anything about New Zealand. But when I heard Antarctica, so the motivation to go, it was there were orders, but when I checked in, reported to Point Mugu, right off, some guys grabbed me and said, you're new. And they had just come back from Antarctica. It was February. And the season goes from October to kind of always think of it as about, Valentine's Day, the 14th of February. And so they were coming back, and the guy said, let's go have a beer. And I said, okay. And we were sitting there, and we were drinking 2% beer. And you go, it was like water. It was just, I'm not big on beer, but it was something that we did. And I looked at this guy and I said, what's that on your chest? And he said, parachute wings. Parachute wings. For what? He said, I'm a member of the Antarctic Parachute Rescue Team. And he looked at me. He said, are you interested? I said, are you kidding me? What do you do? Boom, 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 boom. And again, that thrill, the possibility, when I heard him say, we free fall. We skydive onto the glaciers down there. And we train with the Kiwis, the New Zealanders, the mountaineers, and boy, wait till you see those guys. They're the real McCoy. They teach us rescue techniques, how to get in and out of crevasses, how to haul a sled down and up. But we skydive, and that's the number one thing. So you got to clear that first. And then we've got medical training. And I said, I will do it. And I did. 6 months later, I was a member of the parachute rescue team. And I took 6 months of combination of training and time and psychoanalysis. They had to make sure I was like sane. Was this guy nutty? And all the adventures that I had done in Vermont. I didn't say a lot, but I said I hiked, I skied, and they saw that I was fit. I was a runner, I ran. And so when I stepped off the C-130 the first time in McMurdo, landing at Willie Field on the Ross Ice Shelf, after flying, getting the flight from Christchurch, I was a member of the parachuting rescue team. And the world was wide open, and the cold, they came in from that side door, stepping off into the ice, It was just, and the cold was just like grabs you. Now, I've been in the cold. Vermont is cold and it's wet. And the skiing isn't like out west where you've got 3 feet of powder. In Vermont, we called it boilerplate. We were always skiing on ice and learning, but we were good. We were good skiers, we were aggressive. So that was how I got to Antarctica. And it was 3 seasons, as you said, Scott. And there were some wonderful, exciting moments and moments where you really not knowing what was going to happen. Are we going to live or die? Are we going? It's not, we didn't think that, but it was being in situations that when you read about Shackleton and you read about Scott and you realize we're in a situation. And it was 1974, 75, 3 different seasons. And the gear that we had wasn't like what we have today. We were wearing thick wool, silk, ripstop nylon. It wasn't Gore-Tex. It wasn't ultra pack light, phenomenal gear. But one good thing is that we were testing equipment for MSR, which is Mountain Safety Research. They're out of Seattle. They're a company that provides. They're still around, and they're very prominent here. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they sent us tents and stoves that we tested on the polar plateau, which is around the South Pole, and on glaciers around McMurdo. And fortunately, when we got stuck in whiteout, we were in one of their tents, and I'm talking about stuck where there's 80-mile-an-hour winds, where the radio communication is a Ranger, top-end Ranger radio communication, frozen, completely covered. Helicopters for 2 days, we could hear them trying to break through, the layer to get to us, but the winds down below, they couldn't do it. And so I've experienced things like that and surprises where you have to deal and be very conscious,
And would you say, because we were quite intrigued, because, at that time especially, this was an alien place for most people. And they would have read about it, like Shackleton, for example. Would you say that story you just recounted there was one of the scariest moments you have? Because I can only imagine you had a couple of moments or stories where things did not go to plan and something, crevasses are terrifying. You see documentaries all the time about this. Was there a particular moment or story that you can recount that was pretty frightening?
Well, yes. And it was ego that got me into the situation, my ego. And we were going through maneuvers with some Kiwi mountaineers, and these fellows were from the South Island, from the Hermitage, and they were great. But there was one guy and I that just seemed to have this rift. His name is Stu. And I just thought he didn't like me. And at one point we flew, there was a little jealousy. We were jumping out of the helicopters. We had all the greatest equipment. And these guys were from Scott Base, and they didn't have the resources we had. And we were young. We're all kind of in the same age range. A few of them were maybe at the most. Stu was probably 4 years older than me. But he said, we went to the dry valleys. This is an area in Antarctica that you can fly a helicopter to, and it has 2 valleys, Wright Valley and Taylor Valley. And the dais is an area with the 2 valleys on either side, so it's a chair. And on either side of the nose of the dais, it drops down 1,500, 2,000 feet to the valley floor. And if you follow that valley down below on either side, it rises up to the top of the dais, 1.5 miles further down from the nose. We are camping out near the nose of the dais. There's no snow. It's the only area in Antarctica where there's no snow. It's just the way the winds blow, and it's just rock, scree, and seals. There are frozen seals that have been there that are on top of the dais, and they're talking about, 60,000. I've heard ridiculous numbers, but very, very old, 10,000 years. Wow. It's when such and such broke away, and the carcass is there because it's been frozen in time.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Stu says, Paul, my climbing partner, Tad, follow me. And he takes us on a romp around the nose, but he goes below the top around the nose. And I was thinking, oh, well, I guess he thinks we're okay. And I was going, oh, yeah, this is cool. He led, Paul was behind, and I was third. And I got stuck. I was on the nose. I was below the top. And I didn't know where to put my foot or where to move my hands. And I knew, do not hug the rock. And I was saying, whoa. And it's a combination of I said, I'm stuck. What do I do? I mean, I was new. I'd scrambled around, but it was cold. And then my whole body started shaking. And it started with my legs, and they call it sewing machine legs. And it's where they're just going. And then I was it's like, don't hug the rock. And I wanted, it's like, stay away. And it's like, and then I heard tag. And I stopped. And it was Stu. Move your left foot straight up 6 inches. Nice. Move your right hand. And he pulled me right out of it. What I didn't tell you is that I had time to think. The pain was so intense. I looked between my legs, and I thought, if I let go, the pain ends.
Oh, jeez.
Then it was Stu. Wow. And I'd heard about sewing machine leg, and then it was my whole body. And I don't know. I just thought I can keep up with Stu, and he was testing us.
Yes.
But I was thinking about Stu. When you're on rock like that, the beauty of it is that it wipes everything out of your thought except in what you're doing. And I didn't do that. I was thinking, oh, they're kind of going fast. I could keep up. And then suddenly it was like, and so that was truly a moment. And from that moment on, Stu was quiet, but there was respect. It was my respect for him, and really not seeing him as just an itsy guy. He had value, and we were good. And I made friends with other of the Kiwis. I mean, they were major climbers. Gary Ball went on to be with Rob Hall, 2 Kiwis. I mean, when we were there, they said, well, we're having tea, and someone said, hey, what's the name of that kid that's climbing with it, that started climbing with us back home? And they said, it's Rob. Well, what's the guy's last name? The kid's 15 years old. I mean, he's a tall, lanky thing. And someone said, Hall. And I didn't know, but I remembered the conversation because they were talking about someone that was 15 years old and really good. I had people say some nice things about me when I was younger, and I thought, this kid's getting attention, and it was Rob Hall. Rob Hall, of course, became a great climber and an expedition leader, and he died on an expedition. Biggest tragedy, that was wrote up in Into Thin Air, is based on the documentary story and the book that Krakauer did, and it's on Rob Hall. And so Rob, he wasn't with us at that time, but he and Gary Ball, who was my friend, the Kiwi that was with Stu, became the first guys to climb the 7 summits on the 7 continents within 7 months. Now, that record has been blown way out of the water, but back then, in the 80s, that was huge. Huge. They ended up having a adventure group. It wasn't Adventure Unlimited, something adventure. And if I had said to Gary, I'm a prophet, and I'm going to tell you, a fortune teller, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in 5 years. You're actually going to be getting paid. You're going to make your money from people that are paying you to get them up Everest. At the time, he was so pure a climber, he would have gone, no way.
Yeah.
No way. That's not what I do. It's me and Walter Panatti and and we don't, we're pure. We don't get paid to haul, but they did, and they had a very profitable company. So A couple of stories. And there are many stories on Antarctica. The jump at the South Pole, if you
Yeah.
want to know how cold, it was minus 59. And
Yeah.
yes, we were jumping. I was going for someone said, I don't know, it's like minus 30 something. And I was going, but what was it at altitude when we jumped out of the plane? We're going 125 miles an hour. And they said, probably around 150, 159, 160.
That's unbelievable.
I mean, not 100, 59, 60, below zero.
Gee,
And it
how
was
do you
cold.
control your parachute in those kinds of conditions? That must be incredibly difficult.
Well, the difficulty is for me, I didn't, my right hand, my outer shell glove, I did not tie into the sleeve of my anorak, of my suit that I was wearing.
Yeah.
And as soon as I spun out of the tail end of the C-130, flew off. But even before that, when we tried to open up the ramp of the C-130, it was frozen. The hydraulics didn't work. And it's like, saying, well, we're not going to jump. You hand crank that thing open. And we did that. We had oxygen bottles. I didn't need it. Paul didn't need it. I mean, we were really very, very fit. But we had oxygen bottles and everybody was taking turns cranking, trying to get the door open so that we could fly out, jump out. And we did. And so when I jumped out, my shell came off and my hand, the first thing that I thought, it was free fall. It wasn't a long free fall. It was like about 7-8 seconds. And I said, check, because I had a Dockstein glove, which is a very thick worsted wool mitt. And it was new. So it was real flexible because you have to, wool like that, you have to wear around for a while. But I realized I could pull my ripcord. Ripcords were here in the front, not like today. You pull them from behind. And basically, I felt my hand frozen and thawed in 60 seconds. I mean, it was like the adrenaline, but it was just so extreme. But we were jumping. We were jumping at the South Pole. It was just something that I said, my hand's okay. When I was underneath the canopy, it was like, oh, man, I'm okay. It's good. And I was just going like this all the time, squeezing and just making sure it was all right. And then just using the toggle lines and came in for landing. So
would you say you're fearless or you just didn't know what you didn't know? Or would you say you're naive you were something else?
It's one of the things that goes back to my mom. Don't weigh it out as to what you are within the situation. I mean, I had to at one point when in training, and it was like, why am I doing this? I almost fell out of a helicopter. I hadn't clipped in, and it was in the United States, and it was at Point Magoo, and we had done, it was an ego. The two ego things is this in the helicopter and the one with Stu. It was like, get your thought aligned properly. And when you know it's not safe, you just adjust. And it's not about being fearless. It's being willing. There's an intention, a job. And so you follow through and you adapt. It's like, if I freaked out with the glove coming off, I could have spent too much time in free fall and not had enough time under canopy. Could have killed myself. 20 years later, after we jumped, 1977, 6 civilian guys came in from Argentina, went to the South Pole in an twin otter plane, and they were going to do a jump at the South Pole. The 6 of them jumped. 3 died. And you go, what happened? And I wasn't there. And the information that I sent you with the link about my skydiving, at the very bottom, there is a report on that next jump and those 6 guys. And you can go deeper if you want to. But one of the things is when you have a metal housing that has a ripcord in it, it's all metal. And it's a flexible metal tube that wraps around to your back, and you pull the cord and it slides through this housing and it pops the parachute open. Pilot chute comes out and then pulls out a sleeved canopy, and it pulls that canopy off, and then whew, you have a full canopy.
Yeah.
When you're transferring parachutes between a warm place and a cold place, you get condensation in the housing. And you can get enough condensation where it can freeze. It's packing your ripcord in ice. And it's just a little housing. It's just a half-inch housing.
Wow.
So precautions are taken, and before we jump, we're checking each other. But it's not out of panic, not out of fear. It's out of very conscious choice.
You're drilled.
Very conscious. Exactly.
You've got each other's back in every situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're ready to go, and you're not sitting there pumping each other up. I mean, when I was talking about the helicopter and I didn't clip in, well, I was really feeling, it was in the first year and a half of being on the team, coming back from the ice after the first time, going through a very spectacular mission where there ended up being 2 plane crashes. I don't want to get into that, but coming back, we were asked as a parachuting team with the Blue Angels. The Blue Angels are a high-performance Navy demonstration team. They are the top gun of pilots. And so it was a real honor. They were doing an air show at our base. They did it every year. And we were asked to jump before. As soon as we all landed, the jets would just come through, Yeah. And so we had blue jumpsuits. Look, I'm 20 years old.
Yeah.
20 years old. Not, I mean, some people say cocky, but we were unique. It was unique. We weren't SEAL teams, but we were Antarctic pararescue. And when we went and we had parachute wings, and, if we were trying to meet, the young ladies, we met them. It was really fun. It was it was great. And so I ran up to the helicopter. We all scuttled up. There were 3 of us. Troxel was the jump master, and Paul, my friend that I mentioned before, was learning to be a jump master. So he was on the door on the left, and I was on the starboard side on the right. Troxel went in. I was the last one on board, and Troxel was on his knees in the center of the helicopter, looking forward towards the pilot and co-pilot and out the window. And when I got on, it just occurred to me, I said, I don't have to clip in. I've got a parachute. I'm good.
It seems like you were confident in your abilities first.
Absolutely. And so the helicopter drops its nose, and the pilots are mavericks. These guys are... And it's a twin jet engine, and we're up to, we're going over the mountains, and we're coming in for a streamer run. So we've gone over the mountains, and we're probably, 1,000 feet over the mountains, but then you just soon after that, you're 3,000 feet over the land. And so we're flying over and looking down. I'm saying, this is, I love this. I mean, I'm just sitting there loving it. My feet are in the breeze. I can't touch the skid of the helicopter. And my hands were on the side of the door, and just sitting here and said, look at this day, the ocean. We flew over the ocean, came back over. And then all of a sudden we're coming in for a streamer run. The helicopter banks, goes, I slid out the door. My right foot caught the skid. I slid out the door. I was sliding on the floor of the door, and my right foot caught the skid. My left foot was below it, and I was scrambling to get back in because there was no room. I broke out in a sweat. The helicopter leveled off, and I heard, "You okay?" yelling, and I just went thumbs up, and I wasn't. I completely lost control. I completely lost control of myself. I mean, I was a wreck. And I was like, what are you doing? And I was saying, you're shaking. Why are you doing this? This is crazy. You could have killed yourself. It's like, why are you doing this? You don't have to jump. We're on streamer run. It's like, okay. And it's like an answer came, transportation. Because I said, I'm not going to do this. I don't want to do this anymore. This is crazy. I mean, there have been a couple other times where it's like, no. I don't want to die. And then it was like transportation. It was like something said, just hold me in control. You're a member of the Antarctic Pararescue Team. You are skydiving to get down to a need. It is transportation. It is nothing more than that. It's not you showing off. It's not you in the air shows. It's not you with the people down below. It's not bragging. It's not any of that. It's a job. It's a mission. And snap to. And I did. And I clicked in, and it was ego. It was pure ego. It was pure ego thinking, I can keep up with Stu. I can keep up Paul. And then suddenly, so that is good. And in extreme situations, when you're in a whiteout and there's wind and there's no way for anyone to come in to get you, the biggest thing was food. How much food do we have to survive? We had 3 tents, and we ended up getting 6 guys in our tent just to be together. Always got to have a deck of cards.
Yeah.
You know, you got to have a Boda bag with some wine in it so you can squeeze into the freeze-dried food. So it takes away that horrible, cardboard taste. And not to drink. We weren't drinking. It was just little treats that you take, just like when you go hiking or camping.
Yeah.
You always got the thing that keeps you happy. A couple candy bars. And we had our medical doctor who was new. He was a Harvard graduate, and he got on to medical school. Who knows where it was, but he was, head rank. And the guy said, we don't have to ration our food. And we said, we are rationing our food starting now. And we ended up being there for 2 days. And we said, we will have 1 large scoop, like a big tablespoon, soup spoon of this. Along that, I've got candy bars, and you don't mess around when you're in the cold like that. And even though you can hear someone, and we didn't really hear a helicopter even trying to break through the cover that was over us because they couldn't see. But for a day, we had a little bit of communication, and then it froze. The batteries were frozen.
I can't imagine it. And I know we could just go on and experience, and I know we could. I mean, there's quite a lot you shared there that I want to dive in further, but I also want to make sure that we really get into what created a line in the sand. So before we do, I want to give the listeners a bit of context, and please do let me know if I've got any of this wrong. It all started September 2001, as we all know as 9/11. And this was the catalyst that really made Miles and yourself wanting to understand the Middle East beyond the headlines. And then come 2005, a couple of years later, Miles and yourself began collaboration with a Broadway executive on a play to actually bridge a better understanding of how the US got embroiled with the Middle East. And then that following year in spring, you actually started your journey following the route of Lawrence of Arabia, his path during the World War I Arab Revolt. Interestingly, I thought that would have inspired the book, but there was another event that eventually inspired the book, and that was very recently, which is all we're all still, trying to recover from, is October 7th, 2023. And that was the Hamas attack on Israel. And that was when you and Miles realized, okay, we need to write a book, which we now know as A Line in the Sand, to share what you experienced on your 2006 trek through the Middle East to help people better understand the region and history. Have I got that sort of, that linear?
You
correct?
sure do. The whole point of the trek, discovering that we wanted to go started with, do you know T.E. Lawrence? Because Miles and I hadn't been together, but we've done adventures and we've done business together, television show, Kayak for a Cause, 313 kayaks launched at the same time, Sea Kayaks. And that was an organization. It's an adventure with purpose. It was creating pods of 10. People would name their pod like the Pirates and the Wenches. But believe me, the names got very colorful. And they all, because people loved it. And they all, I mean, there were many safety features, but bottom line, the kayakers raised money based on their desire to go kayak across Long Island Sound. It's about 12 and a half miles. And we brought them back by all these many, many wonderful details. But the bottom line is that they raised money, and we raised enough money because we were raising money for charities.
Yes.
And we raised enough money to write 5 checks, $50,000 each, to charities. Local charities. There were maybe the local branch of an international charity, Builders Beyond Borders, doctors, several women's groups, and children's and cancer care for children. But we would also bring in, the last one was Dickie Betts and the Great Southern. Dickie was, the Allman Brothers. And one year we had the Neville Brothers. We've had the Whalers. And so we were able to pay with this money checks to foundations, the band, all the back line, the staging on the beach for a couple thousand people, and have steak and lobster as a celebration from raising the money, doing the paddle, and then presenting these checks, and all these wonderful bands and local bands as, before the big bands. And so that was great. Miles asked me if I knew anything about T.A. Lawrence. I said yes, because I was going to do a one-man show on the guy. And he said, that's why I'm asking you, because you can do it. We want to think of it. Have you read Seven Pillars of Wisdom? I said, of course I've read Seven Pillars of Wisdom. That's the first one. I said, I got deep into it, Miles. But he goes, yeah, wait a minute. You play T.E. Lawrence. We create a stage production, and we'll go to Choate. We'll go to private schools here, like your public schools there. And we'll go to universities. We'll play, blah, blah, blah. And we'll bring an understanding of how we got into this Middle East mess. Not just us, the world. It's the agreements. And I said, that's brilliant. And he said, yeah, and you play Lawrence. I said, I'm not Peter O'Toole, and I'm definitely not T.E. Lawrence. He was 5'5.5". I'm 6'3". Miles, come on. I'm not going to play Lawrence, because why not get a bigger chair? Miles is brilliant. Is brilliant. Yeah. He is. So we met a Broadway producer, and she bought into the idea immediately. We've had 3 writers, British writers. You would know the names. I'm not going to get into it. It didn't work with them. Right. We spent a lot of time, years. We're with a female writer. She's American. And man, boom, we've got to play. We're still working on it, but we have the foundation to what we've wanted. And she's including Gertrude Bell, T.E. Lawrence, and Amir Faisal, the key players back then, and how they tried to reverse. The play is around them trying to reverse the Sykes-Picot Agreement that was established. I mean, that's the root of the issues. And to deal with the Balfour Declaration, the creating a Jewish homeland in Israel, in Palestine. And so the book was set up after October 7th, because we've been working on the play and working with our lives and our children and all these things. But after October 7th, and having done the trek following Lawrence's path, which is loaded with information and changes of heart and new ideas, perceptions, and realities, knowledge, having trekked from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, along the Red Sea, up through the Gulf of Aqaba to Aqaba, spinning off to Petra and to different places to see castles and Crusader castles, and getting to Damascus like Lawrence in the Arab Revolt did. But the book is set up as historical fiction, is fiction to entertain the people. We use a time travel device, and that time travel device on our trek, and we use our trek. So we use places we went on our trek. And in the story in the book, the fiction side of it is it's Magnus and Finn, that's Miles and Wells, is that we get to certain key places where historically major things happened. And so we use that time travel device to go back in time and eavesdrop on what was going on. And that's how we present the history. The history is spot on.
So it's a really cool concept for a book. And I'm just wondering, did you have something in mind that you were hoping to achieve with the book? And was that the same for yourself and for Miles? Like, did you have the same vision for like what you want the reader to take from it?
Absolutely. And we want the reader to understand it's a primer on the Middle East and the people that we met. And they're all the characters. They may not be the same name of the individual, but they are based on characters and people that we met. And we listen to their stories. And the intention of the book is to present that authentically, just factually. We're not trying to say these people deserve more than these people. We were observers. And so we achieved that, and we achieved that through presenting the history. We've had people that said, I had no idea. What was the Sykes-Picot Agreement? And yet in the headlines or the Balfour Declaration, these things just became over 100 years old. And so there's been in the press, if you're looking for it, there's been a lot about the Balfour Declaration, because that was the beginning of when the British allowed the Zionists to set up shop, home in Israel. And rightfully so. Everybody's doing what they think is right at the time. But there's also, it's going up against, well, if we're going to do that, it's 90 some odd % Arab there. Whether it's biblically your land or not, you're still dealing with the culture that's there. But look what the Zionists in Israel has become in terms of just cultivation and progress. But underneath it all, there's this Arab and Jew. And it's war. And it's, at this point, righteous indignation. And Hamas, to be that extreme, we did see not anger, just anger, upsetment. We saw hatred. We heard hatred from both sides. And after October 7th, we realized we must join the conversation because, like Lawrence, and we wanted to see if Lawrence was accurate. He loved the region. He loved the people. He learned to speak Arabic. He just became a part. He didn't try to change them, didn't try to move them from where they were. And he saw the difficulties, but he just accepted it. And he's a Westerner. The headlines up to 2005 were just horrific. It went from mission accomplished to weapons of mass destruction. And it's like, what is going on? And we wanted to see with our own eyes so that we could infuse the play, the Broadway play. I mean, that's the intention, a first-class play, which would be our executive producer is a West End and a Broadway producer, very accomplished, our executive producer. And so we wanted to see for ourselves. And if you've done enough traveling, you know that we're all so similar as people, as humans.
100%.
The commonalities are much greater than the different. The commonalities are the things that are important, our soul, our beliefs. I mean, the color of our skin or how we dress or how we eat. I mean, I thought it was just exciting. That's why we put recipes in the book. People have had hummus before, but have you had baba ganoush like that? And so it's learning cultures. And we feel that the book, we thought about revising it, and because we see things that we could make it more presentable, and it's like, no, we're on to our second book, our next book, which is also showing, in many ways, white man's hubris and sense of power and saying, look, I'm going to help you. And they're talking to a foreign country. We're going to help you. Yeah. We want a piece of this. We want, well, you've got oil, and we need oil because our ships, we just Churchill just refitted them. I mean, no longer coal, we need oil. We need manganese, we need gold, we need this place because Cuba is strategically located. Our next book is called Havana Familia, and it's on Cuba, that has been the mistreated mistress to Spain, to Russia, the United States, and themselves, the communism that is there. I was there in June.
You've been doing some treks in Cuba recently as well, some reconnaissance in Cuba as well?
Well, it was very straight up. I went solo. Yeah. Miles was there in 2016. The book, the present day in the book will be 2016. And then the time travel device, I won't reveal what it is fun. In A Line in the Sand, it was Miles that came up with the idea. We should do this. It's like a sleuthing adventure. I said, yeah. and he said, we should have a time travel device. He said, brilliant. A dagger. The dagger is the time travel device in A Line in the Sand. And maybe it's Lawrence's dagger. You don't know. And so it's getting people to suspend their disbelief, but be engaged with the story to hear about the places, the people, and history. And so we'll do it again with Magnus and Finn. In this case, they're not doing a trek. They're doing the marathon, the Marabana. And the Marabana in Havana is 2 loops of 13 point whatever it is,
That's an ultra runner, so you might have to get on that one.
Are you really? That's fantastic.
Yeah, I run ultra runs regularly, so I'll happily join you on that.
My dentist did the Bighorn in Wyoming, the Bighorn 100. Before it, I said, Dr. Vehi, and we have a wonderful relationship just because of the adventures and his training and stuff. And this was before June, before the race. And I said, what is your intention? He said, to win. To win. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, I ran with so-and-so and did part of it last year, and I've got a plan. And so he came in number 9. And so, I just have not done that, but the Leadville 100 is big here. And of course, the rim to rim, the Grand Canyon stuff. And good for you.
Yeah, I steer away from the heat. I've done a couple in Asia that have been pretty tough. The heat just adds a completely different element to the run. I pretty much anything. I'd even take more elevation than the heat. The heat just does something to me that just breaks you.
I told you it was minus 59 in one sense in Antarctica. Actually, the coldest was much colder than that. It was over 100 below. And I was there on the 7th of October, 1976. And the chalkboard had that. The wind, they stretched. I was in winter fly-in. So there were 2 planes that landed, and we brought in fresh food. We brought in mail. You see, communication wasn't like this. We were doing ham radio. People were going to a little shack with a tall tower that's tied down to the ice, that's moving like this all the time because of the wind. And the guy, I forgot, it was Joe, I guess. Inside was the ham radio operator. And the line outside was people to line up to try and talk with their family, wherever their family was. And so that ham radio had to patch into different locations in the world to connect, to see how close it could get to the individual's home. And it was just like, hi, Mom, over. You've got to say over because it's switching. So anyway, it was extremely cold, and there was a rope with knots in it that went from where I was staying, setting up a hut, to the door to food. And the winds were in that 80 mile per hour thing. I mean, it's just, you go, oh yeah, really? No, really. Yeah. And it was still dark. It was not the sun with the position. It was just good enough for it to land the plane at a certain time of the day and be able to see okay and unload and bring all this fresh food to people that had winter over. And these winter over people, we were just pasty white, no sun. They'd been 8 months, and they were a little squirrely. And I think they played that up a little bit, hey. people that came down. But 118 was the other direction of the temperatures that I've been in.
Right.
And that was in Wadi Rum
Wow.
on camel. And we took off all of our mountaineering, our hiking gear, our boots, and we went Bedouin, just like Lawrence. We had a keffiyeh and layers of dish dash and things like that on us to protect us from the sun. And the keffiyehs were it's an incredible piece of clothing for your hat, for your head. You can just get it so it's wrapped around your face, and wear sunglasses so that you're not blinded by the sun and the heat, the wind, the dryness. It's no different than at altitude. You need to drink water at altitude. In the heat, you've got to stay hydrated. It's number one thing. Even hypothermia, getting that. I got a little bit of hypothermia, and I really thought things were okay. And I realized I was kind of humming something weird. And I was going, no, and someone's like, hey, whoa, Jones, hey, no, we got to stop. Let's get some tea in you. You're getting a little wacky here. And running in it, I can't imagine.
No, I can't imagine what that would feel like. My closest experience of that, I did a marathon, and it was in crazy heat, and I collapsed, and it was just awful. It was in Montenegro, and I collapsed. And I ended up having to I saw a river, and I just ran to it and just fell in it, and just myself in it for like 20 minutes. And people like, are you okay? Like, I just and I just finally came round, and I was on my own. It was a little bit scary, actually, but yeah, it's crazy. I know, Shelby, you were interested in a significant moment.
Yes. So just something that I wanted to ask you, because we've traveled quite a lot, but you've traveled much more extensively than we have. And, just going back to what you were saying about how we're all a lot more similar than I think people realised. Something for me that stands out everywhere we go, you always see children playing. And that's like a thread for me that I just think, maybe that's my feminine energy that I'm just like noticing children playing in class. For me, a thing that stands out is that we're all the same. Is there like a moment of significance for you, or something, a pattern that you've recognized on all of your travels that made you realize, what, we're all just human?
Well, it's always in listening to someone's story. We can hear, their opinion and agree or disagree. But when you sit with someone and you're eating with someone and they're retelling something from their childhood or something that has happened to them, or what their family is like, or what it's like, just anything that just connects us all. That narrative allows us to identify. And it's just there if we are willing to listen. In our training with risk assessment, we had kidnap and ransom training. We had a great deal of insurance set up in the event we were kidnapped. And the gentleman, SAS retired Major Irish Guard, Jamie Lothar Pinkerton. He highly decorated man, and he was a part of an international insurance company. And they said, when we talked with them, they said, do you know where you're going? Well, yeah, we've read and we know, and we've got some help. And they said, no. You need more than that. And don't just go to Saudi Arabia right now. You have to be sponsored, blah, blah, blah. We got all of that, but it led us to Jamie. Jamie had been just the year before, for the last almost year, he was appointed by the Queen of England to be private secretary to Prince Harry, Prince William, and he was handling their security and the royal family's security. And so we had someone that knew what he was talking about. And he had also worked with Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman for their Long Way Around. And we found that out in his voice. We didn't know that until we spoke with him. So yeah, well, this is very similar. Very similar. We were talking with so. And I mean, his British, I've done, when I was in Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, the directors said, because I was playing a British anchor, newsman, and they fought with each other. He said, God, he sounds just like Richard Attenborough. And he said, no, he sounds like David. It was, here in so-and-so, we've got very fine things. Anyway, so going back to your question, something that carries through in travels and that allows one to meet, to level the playing field. In Saudi, you say, Assalamu alaikum. And when I first started saying it, I was saying it kind of fast and not really looking into the eyes of the person I was talking to. And my interpreter said, you need to say it genuinely. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. And shake off your hand because they're required to come back and say, alaikum assalam. And that is a leveler that allows you both. You're recognizing Allah, God, the presence, and peace. And so that's where you start. Jamie said there's one word that covers all the bases, and it's an action, and it's not verbal necessarily. It's a feeling that you have and that you give, and that's graciousness. Wherever you are, wherever I've been, I have found being gracious, truly, authentically gracious. It's that pause before you respond. It's looking at people, listening. Listen, and he said, it'll save you. No attitude. Gracious. Bring it down to the common, being kind, being real. And so that's something that I've learned and I've practiced. And it was close to me because that's what my mom was saying. You are beating up the people that live here. Why are you? You don't believe that. Look at them. They have homes. They have needs, and just like you. And if they're bullies, well, tell them to stop. Say, knock it off. Why do you have to be a bully? You don't have to fight them. I said, I feel like I do. And said, no, you don't have to fight them. And so graciousness is a big common denominator. And I have found in Saudi, particularly when we went, people said, oh, you're risking. And saying, well, I want to live. I'm not risking it. I don't feel I'm risking anything. I don't feel like I'm risking losing anything. We want to go to understand. We're going with a purpose. It's an adventure with purpose, and it's an adventure to understanding beyond the headlines. Who are these people? What do they think? Jamie said, you're flying into these different big cities into immigration again, and said, no, Jamie. The first one, yes. We're crossing the borders on foot. That's not advisable. And he said, but I understand. And how are you getting into Israel? So we're going to, on a bus, across the King Hussein Allenby Bridge. He said, you are aware that the buses are being blown up.
No,
that seems to be a major target. If you look at the pattern, Jamie, we want to sit with the people. We want to look in their eyes. We want to hear, talk, feel, smell, all of it. And he said, okay, I understand. We didn't register with the consulates. Oh. We did have a plan, and we had a great travel company that helped us with local cars, not, Suburbans, brand new, or Range Rovers, or even FJs. It's in the book. No, local cars. Half the cars looked like they were very unusual and old. And some of the drivers, most could speak enough English, but it was set up. And one driver did not know our next driver. Everything was kept very secure. And the intensity there was being conscious, so situationally aware all the time, following Jamie's advice to a T. To doing that. Do not go out the same door twice. Know that wherever you are, you're being watched. You'll stand out. There's very little you can. There are things you can do, but you're a foreigner, and it's unusual. in 2006. So, and the fatigue was the hardest part, the most intense thing. By the time we got to the crossing and into Israel, wow, we were wiped out, and we're so looking forward to getting to Jerusalem. I mean, having been into places already that were just so impactful with history and antiquities and biblical and Quran and, Torah, the religions, and then getting to Jerusalem. But we were so exhausted, but still on that bus, standing, holding on to the bar, knapsacks, rucksacks in front of us, and hacked in right next to the emergency. We made sure we just worked our way to the emergency door because we would kick it in if we had to get out of there. And just being held up, never knowing what's going on. But everybody's on the bus. It's smoking hot. The windows do not open. No window. And everyone's just squeezed in to go across the bridge and waiting to go across the bridge, stopping at the bridge, waiting more time, getting into the parking lot of immigration, and nothing's there except there's a bus, 50 yards over here, and us. And then suddenly another bus pulls up, after half an hour, but we're still on the bus and just sweating. Mm-hmm. And for us, it wasn't like, it was hell. No, that's what it was. Sweat, wipe the sweat off your face. That's all. Yeah. Stay alert. Where are the two guys with the Tabor assault rifles? He's in the front. Just keeping an eye. Where are people? There were two guys. They were in jeans and work shirts, navy denim work shirts, and assault rifles. They weren't in uniform, and they checked underneath the bus, and they were guarding both sides of the bus, and they were walking from front to the back for 45 minutes on our bus. We saw it on the other bus when the other bus came up, so different people. And so each bus was unloaded separately and marched in through the doors. And when we marched in through the doors, it was like going to the circus. The noise just went, and there were orders being said, stand back, put that down, empty that. I said, stand back. And it was just, and it wasn't because it wasn't personal. It's because that's how intense it is at that crossing. And it's like, what is this? Empty your backpack, and the immigration officer that I had was, she was attractive. And I'm just flat out. She was attractive. She had a big, thick braid, and she was clean. We were coming from the desert, reminding me of my family. It was the first time I was seeing my own wife. I mean, we were so involved, but then suddenly you get a little whiff of perfume. It was rose perfume, and it's like, and then looking away and then being ordered, look at me when I'm talking to you. And it's like, okay. It was like, wake up. Who are you? Where are you coming from? Why were you there? What were you doing in Saudi Arabia? I mean, they're not interested. They weren't friends with Saudi Arabia. What are you doing in Syria? You have friends there? I mean, just like it says in the book. Very similar to what it says in the book.
It's probably a difficult thing to explain to all of the different people on different borders. Like, hey, we're following the Lawrence truck and we're going to all these places.
Yeah.
Right. They thought we were contractors. They were with Triple Canopy, Blackwater, or Centurion. And we said, Allah. In Saudi, la, no, entertainment. It was anything. Yes, anything. Exactly. Anything that would smack of that, but they would just go. But I will say that in Saudi, particularly when we met people, it's one of the first things what came out. I am so sorry about 9/11. And it was 5 years before. Not quite. 4.5 years before. But they were saying, they just, and the ones that we talked with, I mean, we got into there. Miles was doing a presentation to an organization, and that's how we got into Saudi. And he did the presentation, and he had his book from Money Hunt that he wrote with the co-host of Money Hunt. And then one guy stood up and he said, Mr. Spencer, why are you here? What are you doing here? UN. He said, Miles presented me as I was his bodyguard. It was crazy. but I had 30 pounds more on him and whatever. But that's how it was perceived. And his assistant,
That's how I introduced
and
Scott.
we weren't together like that, but we was, and so he said, "You're not here just, no one comes here. You're not here just to talk about your book. Why?" And he said in Arabic, and I don't have that Arabic, "We came to see with our own eyes." And the room is like, he said, "We are here to follow T.E. Lawrence of Arabia's path." And then the room just quietly erupted. Yeah. "My uncle, no T.E. Lawrence, my granddad, well, he's a charlatan." It's all this stuff. And he said, "You're following T.E. Lawrence's path from here, north?" "Yes, we're going along the Red Sea. We're stopping at all the key places, and we want to bring to our people a better understanding of the Middle East beyond the headlines." Guys, you know what the headlines are. I mean, I'm saying that to you, but we said that to them. And they said, "We have no standing. Everyone thinks we're terrorists. We can't even go." So many, many stories. And even when we were invited later by Prince Khalid bin Faisal, His Royal Highness, Prince Khalid bin Faisal, son of a king, it was worked out to be a guest at his majlis. It was worked out to have an audience with him, as they say. But after the majlis, he was coming through. It was late at night, and he stopped and he recognized us. He said, "Thank you for joining me." And he said, "Please join me for dinner. You'll see that we're not all terrorists." And it was like, wow. And that's in 2006. And it was huge. It was big to us. And to hear that at borders, many, you show them, I always have my passport on my desk. You show them, American passport. Wow. People were just like, in Saudi, I say, Ameriki. They open it up. It was just like, "You're welcome here." We didn't say thank you. It was like, and we found that we got inside the tent rather quickly. It doesn't mean that there weren't surprises or different things, but for the most part, the people were astonished that we were there and hand over heart saying, "I'm so sorry about the 9/11."
It's heartbreaking they felt the need to apologise. I mean, Wells, you've shared some incredible stories today, and I feel like I just want to have a chat with you every week and learn more. Thank you so much for sharing those.
We have a quick fire segment where we ask quick question. It's just quick answer, like it might be one word, a few words.
Okay, no words.
The thing we like to do.
Fire away. Go ahead.
Okay. So, what is the coldest temperature you've ever experienced?
It said 136 below, and I questioned that because that was in Antarctica, and there was that night that I was saying it was over 100 degrees below zero with the wind. And they said with wind chill, we have 136.
Damn.
Wow. Would you recommend that everyone should visit Antarctica?
I don't know that everyone would want to, but certainly if you wanted to, go there. Here's the thing. You want to work out. Going to Antarctica, you must go to McMurdo. People are going to Antarctica. They're skimming it on ocean liners or getting close to it, and maybe but McMurdo, yes, I would say go see the purest place in the world. It was when I was there. The purest. Zero humidity.
What is the most impressive film or TV set you've ever been on?
Lone Ranger. Lone Ranger was, and Gore Verbinski. I mean, you're talking about Pirates of the Caribbean, and auditioning for Gore, and being in the morning. It was my first morning. I worked that show for 3 weeks, 3 straight weeks, and I was a vice president of the United States in the storyline. When my call time for hair and makeup was 5:30, so I went into the trailer for hair and makeup, and who's sitting? I'm in the chair. I said, "Your chair." It was the open chair, and the guy that's sitting in the chair next to me is Tom Wilkinson, and he just goes, "Hello." He's like, "Hello." He's like, "Hello, who the fuck are you?" And then over there, I see this hand holding an iPhone with pink bunny ears on it. And she's going, well, what, cussing. Well, what's going on? And it was Helen Bonham Carter.
Wow.
So for 3 weeks, the three of us spent an hour and, plus in hair and makeup. And it was grand.
Wow.
She's married to Tim Burton, and they had just bought 2 homes, I don't know, somewhere in London. And the homes were 2 separate homes, but they decided they're going to connect.
Interesting.
But anyway, it was an interesting thing. So Lone Ranger, the set, the people, it was just such an adventure. And the cinematographer, the skill set, the sandstorms, the intensity, and working alongside Tom Wilkinson. Johnny Depp was away. They had several stand-ins for him that looked just like him in the in the outfit.
What a narrative.
And so it was Armie Hammer. Armie was just very, very cool, nice guy. And it's such a shame the movie didn't take off, because we all thought we landed gold. We landed something that was just going to be.
Which celebrity surprised you most when you met them in real life?
Surprised me most? Well, I've met some. I would have to say Anthony Hopkins. He saw a show I was in. See, I was theater was my main thing. I was off Broadway, but we were actually, before we went off Broadway, we were in this tiny little place, and there were major stars, Actors Studio people in the show. And meeting him backstage with John Strasberg was the director of the show. And he called me over. My acting name is Tad. He says, "Tad, come on over to meet Tony." And I went over, and there was Anthony Hopkins. And he's going, "Oh, Tad, what a pleasure to meet you." And I was just saying, "Mr. Hopkins, no, Tony." And he was very kind about my performance. And he was there because we were hoping he was going to join this repertory group in New York. And I said, I understand you're considering joining us. I'd love to. And it was his kindness, his openness, and he was it was very not long after he got off the drinking that changed his life, and he stopped drinking. He had a real issue with that. And it was his generosity and at the time, I thought he was, spectacularly talented, stage and film, Sir Anthony.
Sir Anthony. Which movie or TV role changed how you see yourself?
I haven't had lead roles in TV and film. I've had nice roles and smaller roles than nice roles. It's in theater, and it happened early on. I was asked to play Danny in Night Must Fall. It's a theatrical piece, and it takes place on the coast in Wales, or I believe. And Emmeline Williams is the author. And he's a bellboy at the hotel, and there have been some murders. It's a murder mystery. And someone's cutting off women's heads and putting them in hat boxes. And Danny is trying to figure out who it is, and the constable keeps coming by, and there's always a storm outside, rain and thunder. And it was Danny that's doing it. And I played Danny. And in order to get into that role, I really went to depths that I had never been. And it was frightening. And I thought I might need someone to help pull me out of it. The director, was very sensitive with me, but he said, keep going, deeper. And so I really wanted to, have been the one that was actually cutting off these heads. And I'm there at a cottage taking care of this older woman in a wheelchair. And in the end, my hands are around her neck, being gentle with her. But it's pretty clear from the audience, and they're horrified. But it was being that killer.
Yeah. Damn.
Wow.
Wow.
What shocked you most during your 1,100-mile trek from Jeddah to Damascus?
Shocked me. I don't know that there was shock. There was I don't know how really to respond to that. There were discoveries made, and probably it was shock. But to think that my religion, Christianity, owned the prophets, that Abraham and Moses and Daniel, all the prophets, John the Baptist, were only in Christianity. I didn't realize that the Jewish religion and the Arab religion, they have the same people in their stories. And it was like, how deep does that go? Well, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. That's in all three religions. And it's like, then what the heck is going on? These are religious wars. What the heck is happening here? How mesmerized have we become in our ego and and what we think belongs to me or to you? You know, I mentioned righteous indignation after, the shock was the extreme that Hamas went to. I've had 5,000 people in the field at a concert that I was producing. And the thought of them being brutalized, I mean, I can't imagine it. But to realize, well, you don't have to imagine it. It happened. And the anger, the hatred that you saw has escalated to the willingness to make a statement so heinous out of anger and hatred to make a point. And then to see the retaliation, it's like the United States, the retaliation to actually guerrilla warfare with 19 terrorists, 19 guys and some people behind them, changed the world. And Hamas, and look what's happened. Where has it gone? It's just continued. When is it going to end? And I don't have that answer, but it must. Is it annihilation? So that's a shock. And seeing the hatred, growing up, we get shoved, we get pushed. Maybe there's a fight in school, school, elementary school, grade school, or junior high, or maybe high school, and you get hit, you get popped, and you shove back or you hit again, but it's over. But when you see that you can cut it with a knife, I mean, you can just, it's so with devil hatred, and so that was shocking to really see that. But it was also shocking after 9/11 to see, assault rifles at airports in the United States. It was like, especially around DC.
Oh, yeah, that is frightening reality right now, and you really depict it in a very moving way. Well, we've got 2 more quick fire questions for you. It might feel a bit strange as we're going to suddenly get light-hearted, but what's the one thing you want people to know about the Middle East?
It's exotic. It's the birthplace of man. Just amazing castles. When you see what's been built, you see the pyramids, you see, you can say that Egypt, but you see the beginning of time. And to go there, and if you know any history, and certainly you should, I mean, to understand a people, you must know something about their history. To accept and understand a culture, you need to know where it's from and what are some of the challenges that culture has had.
And what's one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
You can do it. That's what I've always heard. You can do it. You can do it. We grew up on just do it, Nike, just do it. But it's like, I would say another phrase, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. What you're feeling, what you're going through, and just get up and move. Action, vitally important.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Because it does sound like from everything you've shared is that you knew from an early age that you could do it. So it seems like you saw.
It's in the demonstration, Scott. You can say, I can do a 100-mile race. Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
And come home. You can climb the mountain, but you got to make it home. You got to make it home. Right?
That should be. blindness sometimes. But
Yeah.
Wells, Tad, we've honestly enjoyed you so much to be on the episode. I know we could do a mammoth episode, many more hours, but we sadly do need to wrap up. And I want
We
everyone
do.
to know where they can find you, because you're such an inspiring person. It's very, for me, what I really take away from speaking with you is it's how you communicate. You are very moving in how you express yourself, and you feel very present, and you're very good at making you feel everything you say. And for me, that is a very meaningful attribute of someone's. I want people to know how to get to you. Let them know where you are online, social media, and also if there's anything you want them to know about what you're doing right now.
Well, it's LinkedIn is where I really am right now. And the book, A Line in the Sand, is on Amazon. And it's A Line in the Sand by Wells Jones and Miles Spencer. And the new project that I'm involved with Miles is called Reflekta. It's Reflekta.AI. It's a soul tech approach. It's using humanity together with AI. It's not a game. It's not an app. It is a connection with people, with families, within families. And so taking a gander at that would be great.
Thank you so much. And please do go check that out, Reflect. It sounds very interesting. We had a brief conversation prior to the episode, and it does sound very interesting. So please do go check that out. Well, thank you again, Wells. We've appreciated you.
Thank you, Wells.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
To all the listeners, please do make sure you subscribe, like, share, and rate us on all the platforms that you listen to us on. And there we go. I think we are wrapped up. Another adventure wrapped up.
But the journey never ends.
Keep your bags packed for the next one. And remember, when in doubt, just say, Yalla
Yalla
Habibi.
Habibi.
See you next time.
Yalla Habibi.